All right, let's take a look at free response question number 1 from 2013. And in this video, we are going to be discussing some strategy and approach for solving this problem. So one of the first things I would say when you're reading these problems is you want to really thoroughly read it and understand what the question is asking before you just dive into writing any sort of code. Now, I think with the modified exam, with the shortened time, I have a feeling they're going to cut back on the amount of reading that's required, so we might not see questions that are as lengthy as these in reading, but we want to be prepared for anything. The second thing, as you're reading it, try to think about what sort of coding constructions or methods and approaches you might take to solving it. For example, there might be clues written in the problem that indicate whether you should use an if-else statement or if you need to use a loop. So this question says here, a music website keeps track of downloaded music. For each download, the site uses a download info object to store a song's title and the number of times it's been downloaded. And here they show us the download info class. The download info class here, we can see that we have some methods, the get title method. And if they're including that in the problem, you're probably going to be able to use it and need to use it when you go to actually answer the free response questions. It says that they also have another method here, increment times downloaded. And we've got a constructor above that for download info. So let's take a look at the second part of this. Now they give us the class music downloads. And let's see what this has in it. It has a array list here called download list, and below that we see music downloads again, and here's where we're actually getting to them asking us a question for what we're going to need to be able to do. It says to be implemented in part A, and right above that we can read what they're asking us for here. This method, get download info, does have a return type. It has a return type of download info, and it says that it should return a reference to the download info object. So we know that we're going to be returning an object if it exists. And it says that same thing there, and it should say null otherwise. So right off the bat, I'm kind of seeing there an if and an else sort of construction going on there. And they give us some more tips here in part A. In the next part of this, it says to write the method, and they again state that it should return a reference to the download info object if it exists. Otherwise, it should return null. And they give us 2 sample runs of this. They call get download info, the method, on the web music A, and they check to see if Aqualung is in there, and we know that it should, and so it does. It says that it returns the object to position 2, returns this one. Then they call it with happy birthday, but that returns null. And so now we can kind of dive in. Now that we know what they're asking, we can dive into some pseudocode here. So we know that we need to loop over the list to check to see if, there's that if statement, if the song is there, so if song, then we know that we want to return that object, that song object. Otherwise, we want to return null. So that is kind of what I took away from that problem. We know that we need to construct some sort of loop to check over every element in the list, and we're checking to see if the song is there. We know that we should return the reference to that object. Otherwise, we should return null. And here are the 2 tips that I would give you for writing that loop and to check to see if the song is there. When you go to write the loop, I highly recommend that you use an enhanced for loop. And if you want to pause the video here, I've provided some notes courtesy of CS Awesome that refresh our memory on how to write an enhanced for loop. but essentially you declare the item, and the list or the array name comes next. And so I recommend looping over every element in the list that they have provided. It's called download list. And then we need to check to see if that song is in the list. And to check to see if it's in the list, I'm going to recommend using the dot equals method. And I would say to certainly have enhanced for loops and dot equals as notes readily available if you're not super familiar with them as we prepare for the FRQ on the actual exam. I think it's going to be really, really helpful. The last thing I'm going to do for you here is I'm going to go ahead and get you started with the first couple lines of code for this method. So when you actually go to write it, it says the first line of code is provided for us right here. It says get download info, and we know that it has a return type because that is right here. It is going to be an object. And so when we go to loop over that list, the list was called download list. So I'm going to say for, and then I have to put the item next. And you have to put the type. So if I were checking for a string, I might say string word in colon word list. But in this case, it's going to be for, the type is download info. And I'm going to name the item just info, but you could have called this anything you want. For info in download list. So that's how I would construct that enhanced for loop there. Then we need to check to see if in that item, you're going to call a method that's been given to you in this problem. And then I'm going to run dot equals the title. And then you know that you have to return something after that. And then if you want to, you can use else, but you really don't have to. We know that if this conditional statement evaluates to be false, meaning that the song is not in the download list, then they already told us that we need to return null. So this kind of gets you started here. And again, I think being familiar with dot equals and the enhanced for loop are going to be really, really helpful for this problem.